Greetings, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. A harsh statement directed at the leadership of the People's Republic of China is perhaps the most important outcome of the NATO Anniversary Summit in Washington. It is indeed evident that it could have been anticipated that NATO countries would support Ukraine in its confrontation with the Russian Federation and that they would place the primary responsibility for the aggression against Ukraine on Russia. However, this time the responsibility is also placed on China. It is claimed that without the military and political support of China, the Russian Federation would not be able to conduct its aggressive war. The fact that the North Atlantic Alliance takes the challenge from the leadership of China so seriously, a challenge that concerns not only Beijing's traditional spheres of influence, but also its actual participation in the war in Europe, significantly changes NATO countries' attitude towards the People's Republic of China. The selection of guests at this summit also indicates that China is becoming an increasing challenge for NATO. In addition to the president of Ukraine, who was traditionally invited to the summit against the backdrop of the ongoing war with the Russian Federation, the NATO summit in Washington also saw the presence of leaders from Japan, South Korea, and New Zealand. This is a completely clear and unambiguous signal to the leadership of the People's Republic of China. The United States and all other NATO countries will not remain indifferent to the strengthening of China's military positions in the Pacific region. This is not just a signal, it is a challenge. But the question is how the United States and other NATO countries plan to practically implement measures that should reduce China's political and military influence both on the war in Europe and the situation in the Pacific region. This is indeed a challenging question. First of all, real unity within the bloc is necessary. Immediately after the summit, we could hear from Hungary's Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó that his country will not agree to turning NATO into an anti-China bloc. And the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orbán, visited Beijing and met with the head of state, Xi Jinping, just before the NATO summit. It is evident that the position of Budapest, and possibly not only Budapest, may result in declarations remaining just declarations and the bloc being unable to develop joint concrete positions regarding countering Chinese influence. Another important challenge is the issue of economic cooperation. We have found ourselves in a kind of vicious circle. On one hand, the United States and other Western countries would like to limit the aggressive ambitions of states, such as the Russian Federation, Iran, and North Korea. The main tool for curbing these aggressive ambitions is, of course, economic sanctions. The economies of aggressive countries are being targeted to bring them to their knees, so that the leaders of these states abandon their plans to wage war against neighboring countries or intimidate them. However, at the same time, Western states continue fruitful cooperation with countries like China or India, which in turn economically cooperate with the Russian Federation or Iran. And it turns out that the West imposes economic sanctions against the Russian Federation with one hand, while cooperating with the People's Republic of China with the other. China is helping Russia continue the war against Ukraine, maintain the balance of the Russian economy, and overcome the impact of Western sanctions, all essentially funded by Western countries. At the same time, abandoning the symbiosis with the Chinese economy would lead to new crises in Western economies. No responsible Western politician can afford this. Moreover, Western leaders are trying to strengthen economic cooperation with China. In recent months, Xi Jinping has met with Olaf Scholz, Emmanuel Macron, and Giorgia Meloni. Thus, every visit by a Western leader to Beijing or Xi Jinping's trips to Europe convinced the Chinese leader that European states are powerless in terms of their influence on Chinese policy. Moreover, it can already be said that China is creating a project of the so-called Chinese Europe. In other words, he is trying to unite countries that will lobby for his positions at the pan-European level, one could say at the level of the global West. And the visits of Xi Jinping to Budapest and Belgrade only demonstrated the readiness of the Chinese leadership to genuinely attempt to create such a project. Not only through political declarations, of course, but also in terms of money. Thus, the political influence of China is indeed increasing. Its role has grown in the Asia-Pacific region. Its role has increased in Central Asia. The former Soviet republics, frightened by the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine, are increasingly looking towards Beijing. And now China's role is growing in Europe. The statement from representatives of the Hungarian government clearly indicates that Budapest could even block NATO if the actions of the North Atlantic Alliance to address the Chinese challenge move from declarations to concrete steps. Therefore, the civilized world will have to make a decision sooner or later. There cannot be a sanctions policy that demonstrates the economic helplessness of the West rather than the vulnerability of the dictatorship. There cannot be a fight against one state that is waging an aggressive war and successful economic cooperation with another state that helps the aggressor continue its actions and ignores the consequences of Western economic policies. If we want to return to a world where international law prevails and wars are excluded, the United States, the countries of the European Union, and the United Kingdom will have to sacrifice at least part of their economic well-being. Otherwise, we will be able to say that military conflicts will only escalate. And as they say, those who are unwilling to sacrifice part of their economic well-being for the sake of peace will end up with poverty, war, and disgrace. Here is everything you need to know about the forecasts for the development of the situation in the near future. If not the coming years, then at least the coming decades. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, help promote it, and participate in its sponsorship. Good luck to you.